I remember what I was going to ask you. I don't meet many people who've been attacked by bears, and I really would like to hear this story.
Okay. I have to leave out some details though,
Why?
because I'm trying to think of how I can talk about this topic without fish and game getting pissed off.
I mean, were you running around in like a bacon wrapped suit?
No, but
Okay.
it's okay. I'll say this. I'll leave the ranch name out of it.
Okay. What state was it in?
It was in Montana.
Yeah.
It was here. And it was in the Bighorn Mountain Range.
Okay.
So what happens up here in these northern states, Wyoming, Montana, is there's a lot of times where cowboys will rope bears
What?
on horseback.
Is that to relocate them?
Relocate them, move them away from calves. They don't hurt them whatsoever.
How does the bear respond to being roped?
So usually what happens is like when you're roping a calf, and I'm sure you've seen it, like
Yes.
you rope their back legs
Yep.
and you kind of keep them pinned down for a second. And then it's called loosening your dally, but you can loosen your dally on your rope, which is essentially just this little thing that's cinched down that loosens up, and any animal can just kick it off their back foot and run away, and they're harm-free. Nothing happens to them. So I think I was working this one pasture and I was drawing these calves out of this canyon, and I look across the canyon and I see like 3 cowboys saying, "Hey bear," and they're chasing them on horseback. And it's a pretty big cinnamon bear. And like for those of you who don't know, it's like a black bear species, but it's got
Yeah,
this
color
like,
phase,
red
essentially,
color
yeah.
phase. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're almost, I would argue like they're bigger than a California black bear. Like this one was pretty big.
Yeah, the blacks up here, well, depending on their food source,
Yep.
they can get pretty big. I've seen some ones that are definitely a little in a caloric deficit, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, and he was pretty big. So essentially what happened is they roped him on his back leg because they had calves coming down there, and they could see that the calves, he was kind of like going after them. And so they kept him in this ravine. I went down there, and I had my camera at the time, and I was taking photos of the calves coming out, and I didn't really know where the bear went. And so what happened was when they had him pinned down, I put my stuff away and went down there to kind of like help push those calves along, get everything out so we could let that bear go. And essentially what happened was one of the younger cowboys who was on horseback who roped him, it's just a funny thing. He had a new rope. So he's like, "I don't want to cut my rope." And I was like, "Well, undally it. Like if you loosen your rope, he'll get it kicked out." He kept doing it, but the bear, every time he would try and kick it off, it was just caught up in his claws. So he wasn't able to get it off his back foot. So at this point, I like get down, I'm on the ground, and the bear is kind of like pinned down in this brush. So he's like hiding, facing away from me. And I was like, "Look, we're going to have to get this rope off his back leg." And me, I'm just a quick person to just react and not really think things through very well. So I was just like, let's put the 4 horses in a line, and I'm just going to grab the rope off his back foot. And so when he turns around, he'll see the horses. He's probably already startled. He's going to want to run off. So essentially, we put the horses around me. I grabbed his back paw, pulled the rope off, and he just attacked me right there. And so, but it happened so fast. It was a matter of like, I'm not even joking. It was probably 2 seconds. Like all I heard was him growl, get up on his hind legs. And then I felt what almost felt like a horse kicking me in the shoulder. And then I fell down. And when I fell down, I fell kind of on my stomach, and my hat came off my head. And in my mind, I was thinking like, you know, when you're in that position, you're thinking like the Revenant. You're thinking like, I know what bears do when you're face down. He's going to start ripping up my back. So I just covered the back of my head. And sure enough, I felt his weight and momentum just barrel over me. And the cowboys were like hollering and like chased him off. And then he ran off and he was fine. But the reason why I kept kind of the details out of that was because I didn't want to get crossed up with me being the one that roped the bear, because I didn't. I was just thinking in that moment, like,
Is that kind of a no-no?
yeah, I think it's, I mean, some people would argue maybe it's inhumane. But some, you know, but up here in these northern states, like they do it quite a bit to where they don't mean to harm animals or anything like that. It's just trying to keep them away from livestock or relocate them to a different area.
If they get into the livestock, your choices are going to be far more limited anyway.
Which they did. And so when we were working those calves, there was a calf that was killed a day or 2 prior by a bear. So they were thinking like in that same general location where they're at, they just didn't want to take any chances of losing any more livestock. And so, you know, these ranches up here respect the bears where they're not killing them. You know, they go the proper means of getting a bear tag if they want to hunt them. I was just a photographer in that moment working on that ranch that was just happened to be the one that got down on the ground and was like, we got to free this bear. Like,
did it kick you? Is that what you felt?
no. So what happened was he swiped me. So it happened so fast. I got up like laughing because I didn't really know what happened. I was like, that was wild. And the second I started feeling like this heat in my arm, I looked down and there was blood like pouring out of my armpit. And I unbuttoned my shirt, actually the same shirt, but that company sent me a new one. This
Very kind of them.
Same exact one. It's funny enough. And yeah, it's like a Schaefer outfitter shirt, but I unbuttoned it, had one of the cowboys look into like my armpit, and he was like, it doesn't look like too bad, but you got 4 like puncture wounds. And there was an older cowboy there that was like, I was trying to fight through and just say, we got a couple more hours of work. I'll go back to the ranch. I'll disinfect it and figure out what I got to do and maybe stitch it up myself. And he was like, I would probably go to an urgent care hospital because their claws have a lot of bacteria.
Oh, for sure.
And that close to your heart. He's like, I wouldn't play around with that. So what happened was, making this a long story, but I drove myself back to the ranch where the headquarters was, where my car rental was, or my rental car. And then I had to drive that car 2 hours to the nearest hospital. So it was probably almost a 3-hour drive in total. And I just kept my arm pinned to my side to kind of stop the bleeding. And when I got to the hospital, it's like right outside of like a Native American reservation. And the whole office, I've never seen like a hospital lobby just empty. Like no one's in there. It's probably like 3-4 o'clock at night or late afternoon. And, I sit down in the chair, I check myself in, and the lady's like, all right, just take a seat in the lobby and like, we'll get to you when we can. And I was like, well, no offense, but like you've got blood running down your chair and all over your floor. Yeah. And she like looks down at me and looks up at my face and looks down again. And she's like, then she looks at her computer and she's like, oh yeah, I did just enter that you were attacked by a bear. And I was like, yeah, so I probably need to get someone to come see me. And so she's like, hold on. So she like hits a buzzer or something and nurses come right away. They bring me back. They take a look at it, and essentially they were just going to stitch it up initially after they gave me a saline wash. And then the main nurse who was there was like, I'm going to do some chest x-rays and just take a look and make sure your vital organs are fine. So she does x-rays, and I'm like in there kind of laughing with the nurses and whatnot. And she comes back in and she was like, I wouldn't be laughing if I was you. And I was like, well, why? Am I good? Like, I'm thinking I'm going to be here for like 48 hours doing surgery or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, the main tear was an inch away from your axillary. And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, you would have bled out in like 5 to 10 minutes. And I was like, really? So she's like, good news. Like, we're doing 14 stitches today. We're going to finish washing it some more, give you stitches. You're good to go. And then I had to drive another 6 hours to another ranch that night to work the next day. And so bringing it back to what happened is when I was on that 6-hour drive, I called one of the cowboys and I was like, what did you see from your perspective? And he was like, man, the second you pulled the rope off, he got up on his hind legs and he swiped once for your face and missed you. And then he swiped again, and that's what connected you. And then as you were falling backwards, he jumped over you and tried to bite your face and took your hat off your head. And I was like, that was all in a matter of like 3 seconds. He was like, yeah, it was pretty wild. So essentially it was, it's a funny story. And I remember like calling my fiance at the time, like, hey, don't freak out. And she was like, what is it now? And this is like 8 months, before we get married. And, she's like, I told her, I was like, I was attacked by a bear. And she was like, how? What were you guys doing with bears? And I was like, the Cowboys roped one out. They were just trying to keep him away from the calves for a minute. And essentially this is what happened. And she's like, well, did he get your face? And I was like, no. And I was like, why, would you not be with me anymore? And she was like, no, I would still marry you, but like, you're already ugly enough as it is. I want to make sure that your face is all right.
She sounds awesome.
Yeah. So it's been the funny story now where I go home and a lot of people have wanted to hear this story, or they've wanted to ask about the bear, and Bella just rolls her eyes. She's like, oh, great. Here we go. Here's the bear story again.
So were you working on the ranch moving the cows, or were you out there working as a photographer?
I was working as a photographer. Yeah. So I wasn't on their payroll or anything like that. I was just invited to come out and take photos. And so essentially that's why I want to keep them private, is just the mutual respect I have for that ranch.
For sure.
I don't want to turn them into a liability or hurt that relationship. But it's one of those things where, you got to be careful out there with what you're doing. And obviously I was not clearly thinking. The only thing that was going through my head was like, I just want to get this bear free. Like I don't want to ditch the rope and him get caught up in a barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, something else happened. If I'm already here, I'm just thinking all I got to do is just pull the rope off.
Hindsight, what would you do now?
Cut the rope, because I know eventually he'll get it off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the funny thing that I told. I mean, that cowboy, I think he was probably 19, 20, just a young guy and like a good hand, and all that. And it's just a funny thing. Like no cowboy wants to lose a rope, especially if you just
That's
bought
one
it.
of the main tools. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of your main tools and you still got a whole day of work you got to do. So it was just one of those wild stories that it kind of spread to all the ranches up here. And I was like, when I went to that next ranch, they just roped a bear like the morning that I was there, and I had no idea. And I was like, is this a normal thing? And they're like, yeah, we kind of all do it for fun and like whatnot, but no one gets off their horse and takes a rope off and then gets attacked. They're like, that's wild. And they're like, respect, but also stupid. And I was like, I agree.
Stay on your horse, fucker.
Yeah. And so it was just this funny thing now that it's like, hey, Beau, that Western cowboy photographer, yeah, he was attacked by a bear working on a ranch. And so I look at it like that's my dedication to this lifestyle. So I've been attacked by a bear all for it.